This episode of Southeast Iowa Today is brought to you by Griner Auto Body of Washington, Iowa, using state-of-the-art techniques and decades of experience to get your car back on the road after an accident. Car Doctor of Washington, Iowa. No matter who Frankensteined it, they can fix and clean and customize it. McDonald Boneyard of Keota, Iowa, for all of your farm equipment and auto recycling needs. For great food, it's your choice. Your Choice Family Restaurant of Wayland, Iowa. Open Tuesday through Sunday. Try the giant Bain sandwich on your next visit. Girling Repair of Winfield, Iowa. If your mower is dead, call Fred, your Husqvarna, Aaron's, and Gravely dealer. Fred also fixes and sells snowblowers. B&B Propane and the family of Jet Stops. CW Tree Trimming LLC. We're into your trees, not your wallet. Serving all of Henry County and the surrounding area, and we offer a senior citizen and veteran discount. Iowa Technology Systems delivers professional IT services. From company networks to home computers, we keep you connected with reliable service you can trust. Enterprise IT services, quality computers, and local IT support, all designed to keep your technology running smoothly. Visit iowatechsys.com to see how our services can help you. They all present the award-winning Southeast Iowa Today. Get ready for podcast excellence with the author of Christie's Journey, The Beat Goes On, and your host, me, John Bain. I've got a real treat for you on this episode. How I know that is, I, of course, conducted this interview with Washington, Iowa author Dan Henderson. Dan has a new book out, and he has been making the circuit promoting it, and it is called Rhythm Pep, the Vaudeville Career of the Pearson Brothers. Now, before I get you to my conversation with Dan, I want to thank the Washington Public Library right here in Washington, Iowa, for the use of their wonderful podcast studio. Now, my conversation with Dan. Dan, welcome back to the podcast.
Hey, it's great to be here, John. Appreciate you having me.
You're welcome, and I want to thank the Washington Public Library for letting us use their podcast studio this afternoon. That was very nice.
It's a great place to do an interview.
Yes. Now, you, sir, anybody that knows anything about Dan Henderson or Daniel Henderson, is you are an author, and you've got a new book out. What number is this?
Okay, well, this is my retirement career. So when I retired in 2022, I had already published one book. That was a family history of my family going clear back to Scotland and Ireland and that kind of thing. It's a little bit more limited to a family sort of book, but I did put out two others after that, Confessions of a Recovering Evangelical. I did another one called A Spiritual Journey to Anti-Racism. So those two were, about religion and politics and a lot of things going on, and a little bit more of a personal memoir style.
Gotcha.
Now this book, so this would be my fourth.
Okay.
That just came out in November of 25.
So you're kind of, okay. I was going to say you're averaging like one a year, but you're a little bit ahead of it.
Almost, yeah. I actually did two in 22.
Wow.
And then, it's been kind of a constant. But this was actually this current one, Rhythm Pep, the Vaudeville Career of the Pearson Brothers. I've been working on that for about 10 years.
And right now, 10 years. Right now, over your right shoulder, I have a picture of the front cover of the book.
Yeah.
You gave me a copy. I've got one right here. Thank you for that. I can't wait to read it. And you've got another one there. And we might have you hold up. But right now, the folks are actually seeing it on the screen.
Yeah.
So the Pearson Brothers, it says Okay, Rhythm and Pep, the Vaudeville Career of the Pearson Brothers. And it's a description says, chronicles the Pearson Brothers' journey from Iowa coal mines to vaudeville stardom, performing across America's key theaters from 1918 to 1928, including shows at New York's Palace Theater. And Earl and Carl Pearson, along with their partner Cleo Newport. Did I get that right?
That's right.
So that kind of sets up what we're going to be talking about, but
Yeah,
there's a whole lot more to this.
there's a huge story here.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll start with just how I came across the whole story to begin with.
Yeah, I think that's important.
Because it is really a family connection here. I grew up in Western Iowa. My grandmother, this is my father's mother,
Okay.
told us about her brothers, her two brothers. And I never met them. But she told us about their career in show business, and they were fantastic and so on. And as a young kid, I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it. It was like, oh, that's cool. You know,
Yeah.
I'd go do something else. But what I didn't know is that one of her brothers, Earl Pearson, kept this scrapbook of his career. He just built it year after year after year, and it ended up being about that thick.
Wow.
And it was handed down through the family. So my grandmother got it. Earl died in 1959.
Okay.
And my grandmother had it. She died in 1984. She passed it on to her daughter, which would be my aunt.
Okay.
And it would show up, this scrapbook would show up at family reunions.
Mhm.
So I was looking at it as an adult now, not as a kid.
Right.
And
Whole different perspective.
Whole different perspective. And I was a history teacher by that point. And so my interest in this scrapbook just skyrocketed.
Oh, yeah.
And so eventually my aunt, she was about 93 years old in 2015.
Okay.
And she had known the Pearson brothers. So she was like the last person of her generation in our family anyway.
So that scrapbook,
them.
that scrapbook was real to her.
Oh, it was very real to her.
Yeah.
And I got with her. She gave me, I mean, I was so honored to get it. She gave me the scrapbook, partly because she knew I was a history teacher and I loved family history. And
you earned it by that time.
I hope so. But I told her at that point, I'm going to do something with this scrapbook. I didn't have an idea. Wasn't even necessarily thinking of a book at the time. Mm-hmm. That was 2015. Now she died in 2019.
Okay.
She was 97.
Wow.
Or 95. I can't remember the exact age, but I wish she would have been around long enough to see the book.
Oh, I bet she would just have been so proud.
So proud. And my grandmother too, for that matter. But at any rate, when I got the scrapbook and I started flipping through it, I realized there was really an important story in it. But the scrapbook alone, which contains, by the way, hundreds of newspaper clippings of reviews of their show, it contains photographs, letters, telegrams, schedules that they kept from town to town where they traveled.
Wow.
But it wasn't in a narrative form. So I had to do a lot of research. I started with newspaper archives online and libraries. I went to Clarinda, Iowa, which is where, by the way, they grew up and where the story begins, is in Clarinda.
Okay.
And just to kind of give you their backstory, in Clarinda, their father and actually his brothers, they started coal mining operations back in the 1870s.
Wow. Okay.
Way early. And Iowa, a lot of people don't know this, but Iowa had a lot of mines, coal mines.
I was I was just going to say, a lot of people wouldn't even think of coal mine. They always think of Kentucky and places like, you know.
Yeah. Now, Iowa was never as big as Kentucky or West Virginia or someplace like that, but it was significant. There were thousands and thousands of coal miners throughout the state.
Wow. And
they started coal mining, and Carl and Earl Pearson started working in these mines around 1905 to 1910, somewhere in that range. They would have been teenagers. Well, the older brother is Earl.
Okay.
And he did not like coal mining, hated coal mining. And he actually had a vision to go into show business already anyway. So he kind of got out of the mines.
Which is incredible when you think of the time, the era they were in.
Oh yeah.
That had to be, I mean, it's a crazy idea today.
Yeah. Yeah.
How
It's like,
that's like a different planet kind of
yeah,
crazy
yeah.
idea, you know?
It's like, I'm going to go on the Idol television show and maybe I'll win.
Yeah.
It's like, But vaudeville was a little bit different though, and I'll get into vaudeville in a minute.
Okay.
But Earl went out and he actually joined immediately a medicine show. Now, the old medicine shows, you might know, there's some guy coming through town with a horse and a buggy and
Selling elixir.
selling medicine that never been tested ever before.
But you're going to be younger, feel younger than you ever did.
Yeah, yeah. If you lost an arm, it'll grow it back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, he joined it because these medicine shows would have people performing to draw a crowd.
Okay.
Okay. And so Earl and his buddy, he had a buddy at the time, they went out on the medicine show. Well, it went broke, so they hit back home. They found another theater company that they joined up with called the Deming Theater Company. Now, this was an actual real theater where they traveled from town to town, and they would do like a week-long series of shows.
Were they
night.
tent shows or?
So, no. There's like a tent show, only this company used opera houses and theaters.
Gotcha.
And again, they used vaudeville entertainers in between set changes, and at the intermission time, they'd have vaudeville.
Explain to the folks that aren't as old as me or you that might not know what vaudeville was.
That's one of the things I found, John, is a lot of people don't really know what it is. So if you think of something like Saturday Night Live, where they have these sketches, they're all different. They're not really related to one another. And then they intersperse it with some music. That is old-time vaudeville.
And maybe some entertainers that people would recognize their names.
Were
Bob Hope.
Bob Hope was one of them.
I think Bing Crosby started.
Bing Crosby was in it. There was Burns and Allen.
And even Milton Berle, I think.
Milton Berle, on and on. Houdini was there. And all of those names are people that the Pearson Brothers appeared on stage with.
Wow.
I mean, they performed alongside, Jack Benny was another one, alongside a lot of the big names in now the difference is a lot of those names that we know are people that went into radio and movies, and some of them went into television. Bob Hope and Jack Benny, people like that. So we know their names, but vaudeville was the most important entertainment industry in the United States from about 1880 up to about 1930. And by 1930, talking movies had just taken over, and it kind of killed the vaudeville industry. But the Pearson Brothers got in on it kind of toward the end, from about 1918. And like I said, they traveled about 10 years on what were called circuits.
Okay.
And now the biggest circuit was called the Keith Orpheum Circuit.
Okay.
So a lot of people are familiar with an Orpheum Theater.
Yeah, there's one at RKO Orpheum Theater was in Davenport.
Yeah, and those theaters at one time were exclusively vaudeville theaters.
Okay.
And it was a string or franchise of maybe 60 theaters across the country under one management.
Wow.
And this is what made vaudeville a big business, because they were booking hundreds and hundreds of performers on multi-year contracts to travel these theaters from place to place to place.
And then their names
became
synonymous with it, and it was a big deal when they came to that town.
And so what the Pearson Brothers did, let me kind of explain what their act was, because it's a little bit hard there is no video of them, there's no picture even of them on stage. What I have are over 200 reviews that describe their act.
We've got the act in words.
And so what they put together was really unusual. Earl, by the way, went back to the coal mine, found his younger brother, his partner, Shorty. He took off with some girl and he got married, so he broke up the act. Earl needed a partner, so he went back and got his younger brother, Carl. Convinced him to get out of the coal mines. And they worked on what can only be described as an acrobatic eccentric dance routine. So they would do this to music, and
is that like a Cirque du Soleil?
Almost like that.
Almost, yeah.
And what they really what they did is they were doing acrobatic gymnastic stuff to music.
Okay.
Almost like you would see in the Olympics for
yeah.
The mat.
And probably like on America's Got Talent.
Oh yeah, you
when
could probably see
those folks
like
doing the acrobatics with the music and such. Yeah.
Well, apparently, and the music at that time would have been ragtime music. It would have been jazz of the 1920s era. So it was really an exciting era anyway, just in terms of life was changing and America was changing.
And that music at that time was very electric compared to anything else.
And dancing was just, that was one of the biggest acts you could have in vaudeville. Fred Astaire started in vaudeville with his sister as a children's act.
I'll be darned.
And they were dancing. They did dancing. Of course, he went on to big things.
Yeah.
But anyway, apparently their act was so good and unique because a lot of the reviewers described it as, we've never seen anything like this before.
Wow.
It was so powerful. Now, they did 2 acts over 10 years, which gives you the name of the book.
We are going to take a quick Obscene Profit Center break, and then Dan and I will be right back. Sanity. It comes in handy when you need it, and Sanity Coffee House will serve it up through coffee and pastry like God intended. If the beans were any fresher, you'd smack them. Sanity is home of the Mad Cow and caramel knowledge. Low on energy? Try their Lotus drinks. Special frappes and iced coffees await. Hungry? Go for a whole hog or a porcalypse. And a mac and cheese wrap will satisfy. Always high-speed Wi-Fi, so pull in and get your Sanity at 104 South Iris Street, Mount Pleasant, Iowa. Pfeiffer Sawmill, your local home for kiln-dried lumber and affordable trailer decking to your specifications. All in Rome, Iowa, serving Mount Pleasant and all surrounding areas. Do you like to throw a hatchet? They've got your board. Call Ben today at 319-931-4544.
So the first act they did from about 1918 to about 1923, was called A Study in Pep. Now, that show would last about 10 to 12 minutes.
I was going to ask just how long a routine was. Yeah.
Most vaudeville acts were about 10 to 15, somewhere in that range.
And when you think about 10 to 12 minutes of stand-up comedy, you're not, they get worn out doing that.
That's a long time.
Yeah, 10 to 12 minutes of acrobatic performance.
And it was nonstop.
That's incredible.
The reviewers said they've never seen anything as fast-paced, as unique. They were jumping over tables and boxes, diving from way up high, all in time with the music.
They had to be in great shape for that.
Yeah. Well, Earl's wife was Cleo Newport. She's on the front of the book.
Okay.
She was part of the act too. She was the pianist who provided the music.
Gotcha.
And so they would travel. They traveled together for about 10 years.
Do you think he'd wink at her if he wanted her to slow down the tempo a little bit or something?
I don't know, but a lot of the reviewers said that she absolutely knew every move they would make, and she could make the music sync to their movement every time. They never missed a beat.
That's incredible.
It really is. I wish I could have seen it.
Oh, yeah.
But the second act that they did, they changed it. Now, the reason they did the same act over and over was because they traveled from city to city. No one had ever seen it before.
It's new every time.
City, so they just do the same. And that was true of most vaudeville acts. They just did the same thing night after night. Now, in 23, they came up with a new routine called Rhythm.
Okay.
And from the reviews that I read, this took it to a whole new level of energy. I mean, it was really amazing. And this is what took them to the top.
Wow.
They would perform at the Palace Theater in New York, which was then considered the pinnacle of vaudeville success. That was the most grand, high-class theater in the United States.
Wow.
in New York, the Palace. They not only performed once, they performed there 6 times, which tells you, if you're good, you might get asked back.
Yeah.
But they got asked back 6 times. So They also performed in Washington, D.C. for President Woodrow Wilson.
Wow.
I have that in the book. There's a section on that. Wilson was a real fan of vaudeville. He and his wife loved vaudeville. And every Saturday night they went to the vaudeville show. And in the scrapbook, I actually have the souvenir program for the president that night.
Nice.
That they performed for him.
You know, no matter who the president is, it's if you're an entertainer and you're doing, I mean, that pretty much you get asked to perform at the White House, you're the top dogs.
Yeah.
Well,
it wasn't at the White House. It was actually at an Orpheum Theater.
Okay, but the president was there.
The president was there.
I mean, you're a top dog when the president comes to see you.
Earl talked about that a lot. He did interviews, and I've got some of the interviews that he did, and I published them in the book as well. And he always kind of talked about that as looking back on his career as performing for the president.
You got a young man from Iowa.
Yeah.
And
coal miner, and has this wild idea that, hey, you know, there's something I want to do different in my life. Yeah. And I want to do this. And to achieve the success, he probably had to pinch himself. Well, yeah, you would think. Even the Palace was the same way. Just to be able to perform at the Palace was not every vaudeville performer had that opportunity.
Oh, I bet not.
And they were so fortunate that they were able to do that. Now, their career actually, I'm not going to go into all the details because there's more stories here.
Sure.
You got to buy the book
to
read it.
Yeah.
But things fall apart for them at one point. Bad circumstances occur. But it kind of coincided with the decline of vaudeville itself. Because by 1927, talking movies came on the scene. And even the Palace Theater, you mentioned RKO. Mm-hmm. RKO is what bought all of those theaters, those Orpheum theaters, including the Palace. They were all converted into movie houses by the 1930s. But they continued to perform all through the 1930s. They found ways to stay on the stage. They hooked up with some other performers and they did some things. And eventually, I mean, they performed another 15 years after vaudeville was pretty much gone.
Wow.
Right up to the end of World War II.
Huh.
So if you think about doing acrobatic dance movements into your 40s, they were still doing it and getting rave reviews at the same time into the 1930s and early 40s.
Just think if that 2 or 3 decades later, they could have been an act in Vegas for forever.
Yeah. Now, another interesting point is how much money you can make in vaudeville. The great performers could make thousands for just one performance.
And thousands in the 1920s and 30s.
That was a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
Now, the Pearsons, at the height of their career, were earning around $600 a night.
Wow.
Now, in today's money, that's about $8,000 or $9,000. So you think about, that's pretty good. It sure beats coal mining.
Yeah.
Because even if you own the coal mine,
it beats a lot of professions as far as.
Oh my goodness, yeah. So, but it was a risk because there was no guarantee that you were going to be successful.
You still got to put butts in seats.
That's right, and they did that.
Yeah.
Now the downside of vaudeville is that it was a big business, and the managers and theater owners were taking cuts of those salaries. Plus, vaudeville performers had to pay for their own train fare. That's how they traveled.
Okay.
In those days, their own food, their own hotel, and they're on the road almost the whole year.
I'm glad you brought this up because in my mind, I was thinking if they were on that circuit, all that would have probably been covered, but it wasn't.
No, there were no expense accounts.
Yeah.
You were an independent agent or independent contractor, and you had to pay for your own whatever, your own costumes, your own everything.
Gotcha.
So it was a lot of money. They made a lot of money, but by the time both Earl and Carl retired, it was gone. You know, they
Yeah.
had bought some nice cars
Uh-huh.
in the 30s, I guess, from what I understand. My grandmother told me they would drive up to visit them at the farm in western Iowa when they had a break, and they'd always be in these beautiful Oldsmobiles, or
Nice.
they even had roadsters back
Okay.
in the 20s.
Wow.
But so they
And they
probably,
probably had fancy suits.
oh, they did,
Yeah.
they did. So they probably squandered some of that money,
Yeah.
my guess. But and of course the Depression came along, and that took a big bite out of the entertainment
Oh,
industry
I bet
too.
so. Yeah. And when they were in there in the 1920s, I mean, the Roaring Twenties.
It was the Roaring Twenties.
Buddy was spending money and hooting and
Oh
hollering.
yeah, there was business was good, at least
Yeah.
for some people
Yeah.
anyway. And but it all fell apart by the late 20s. And of course, 29 was the
Yeah.
big
Big
market crash.
crash. Yeah.
But so the story, it has a lot of, there's ups and downs, there's tragedies, there's comebacks. I mean, it's really a fun story just from a human interest standpoint.
One of the biggest things Americans love is the comeback story.
Oh yeah, and this one's got it. I
Wow.
mean, this one's got a great comeback story. So now I have been this, like I said, the book came out in November last year,
Okay.
and I've been on a book tour ever since, and I've still got dates lined up after this.
And I
After
say, and
today.
we're friends on Facebook, so I've seen some pictures where you've kind of, when you go to some of these events, you're kind of in period style clothing.
Yeah, I do that on purpose. And it's almost, I'm a historian, and as I studied this, I've been immersed in it for 10 years, and it's almost like I want to live in that period,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I want to understand it.
You're
And
kind of like the vessel between the decades.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And so when I do a book event, I'm dressed in 1920s era uh, suit and cap,
Yeah.
and I try to give the audience a sense of this is what it was like to go to a vaudeville show.
And just, but from the pictures,
Oh,
I'm like, anything you're going to say, I'm going to believe you about this. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
you're immersed in it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so the one of the first places I went, it was early in December, was Clarinda, which was the hometown of these brothers.
Gotcha.
And Shenandoah, which they're two towns. I don't know if you know where they are, but they're close together.
Okay.
And Shenandoah plays a role in their story too.
How far is that away from Washington, Iowa?
Oh, it's a good 200 plus miles.
Okay.
So I mean, it's southwest corner of Iowa.
Okay.
If I grew up in Council Bluffs,
Yeah.
if you know where that is,
Yep.
then if you go about 80 miles south of Council Bluffs, you're right in the corner, kind of where Missouri is there and Kansas is across the way. I mean,
Yeah.
you're in that corner down there. And
At one time, that was the Old West.
it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jesse James came through that area at one time. But at any rate, I went to Clarinda, I went to Shenandoah at the libraries there. People were just so enthusiastic to hear the story because a lot of people hadn't heard this story. Like I told you before we started, they understood and knew the Pearson coal mine because, they would say things like, "Oh, my grandfather worked in that coal mine," and that put food on our table for years, and
Yeah.
they knew who the Pearsons were, but they didn't quite have an understanding of the career of these two guys in vaudeville. So it was exciting to see people understand, hey, these guys were celebrities
Yeah.
from our town.
They were the Bix Beiderbecks of
Yeah,
Clarinda.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
somebody from that time, or the Elvis Presleys.
Well,
in some ways.
Shenandoah was also the hometown of the Everly Brothers.
Oh wow! Well, there you go.
And so I met the guy. Well, there's another story here. If you got time, I'll tell you a
Yes.
quick story.
Yeah.
So when Earl and Carl were practicing their routine to get started, they would go to a barn near Shenandoah, about 15 miles from Clarinda.
Okay.
And they practice in a barn. Earl described it as right next to the depot, or near the depot, the train depot through there.
Okay.
Well, that depot is still there, and it's a restaurant now.
Okay.
And so I went to the restaurant and I talked to the manager and I said, I've got this story about that includes the depot here. Do you want to hear about it? And he said, oh yeah. So and the guy was kind of a history buff anyway.
Okay.
So he said, how many books can I have? I'll sell them.
Wow. You love hearing that.
Oh, I love hearing that. But at any rate, that's where they practiced their routine, was in a barn.
Okay.
A hay loft, and I don't know how they did it, but within a few months after they practiced, they went to Essex, Iowa. Now that's another small town just north of Shenandoah.
Okay.
Today it's got maybe 700 people.
Gotcha.
It's pretty small. But they had an opera house there.
Okay.
And I've got a picture of that opera house because it's still there.
Oh, wow.
And I visited that opera house 2-3 years ago. And it's now a community center, but it was a beautiful little building. It wasn't huge, for a town that size, but it shows you that opera houses were really important in rural America and in rural Iowa. After you built a church and a school and Main Street, you probably were going to build an opera house. It signified culture. Right. That your town was coming of age, that this was a good place to be. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, they got their first act. They did their first act, ever performance, in that opera house in Essex. Oh, yeah. And they packed out the house 3 nights in a row. Wow. The manager was very happy.
I bet so.
So yeah, there are a lot of stories from that part of the state. Now they performed all across Iowa, from Omaha, Nebraska, but Omaha, Des Moines, Sioux City, Dubuque, Quad Cities, but then again from coast to coast. They were everywhere for that period of time.
Where can people get this book?
Okay, if you're here in Washington County, shop local. Yeah. So go to the Dodici Cafe. Okay, they've got it. The Village up here on the corner also has it. In fact, I just got an email today from someone who bought the book at the Village, and he said he read it, and he said, I just wanted to write you and tell you how much fun it was to read this book.
That's awesome.
Oh, it was cool. It was one of those things you get back and say, oh, that's gratifying.
It is.
But other than that, they are in bookstores around the state. I'm going to be at Prairie Lights this Sunday. Okay. It's there. It's in Des Moines at the Beaverdale bookstore. Nice. There. Bookstores, a lot of the independent bookstores around. But other than that, it's on Amazon. Okay. And you can get it there. It's probably on Barnes and Noble. Okay. Along with all my other books. So yeah, they're all available. Well, and if anybody wants a signed one, they can email me or message me, and I'll sign one and send it out to them if they want to.
And I learned something right before this interview, that you have given several copies to several libraries.
Well, every library I go, I donate one.
So here in the Washington Public Library, there's one here too, for folks to check it out.
If you don't have the money, just come down and check it out, and it'll be here and signed.
Well, we are at right now we're at 30 minutes of podcast excellence. That's how fast this rolled along.
It did.
I got one more question to ask before we wrap up. When's this going to be a movie?
That's a really good question. I've had several people ask me that.
You got all the ingredients.
Because, the ingredients are there. And I'm actually mulling that around as a new project. Okay. Now, I'll have to find someone to do screenwriting and that kind of thing.
But you also need to make sure that you insert yourself into that time frame so that you can live in the moment and watch your great uncles do their thing.
Yeah. It would be so fun to do that. One of the things I have thought about doing is using artificial intelligence to create a video of them, because I think there's enough information in the book. I could feed AI, reviews. I got 200 reviews. Yeah. That describe what they did.
That would be incredible.
I don't know. I have to find
the only thing, and we're at that point, and the more that it gets played with, the better it'll get. You got to make sure they don't have like 7 fingers and like you see in some of these pictures that people
I just would like to somehow recreate some image of what that act might have been like.
That would be really something.
That would be fun. But the movie idea is credible. There's a couple people here in the state I know that have some connections to Hollywood, and so we'll just see where it goes. Well, maybe we'll do another podcast on that one day.
I would love to do that, and I will definitely be buying front row tickets and a bucket of popcorn to watch.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
Well, Dan, thank you for coming on.
Hey, thanks, John, for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks once again to Dan Henderson for being on the podcast. If you would like to learn more about Rhythm and Pep, the Vaudeville Career of the Pearson Brothers, or Dan's other books, visit his website, and that address is danhendersonauthor.com, danhendersonauthor.com. Thanks for watching, and please do me a favor and give this episode a like. Follow and subscribe. It is free. Thanks to my sponsors, Griner Auto Body, Car Doctor, McDonald Boneyard, Your Choice Family Restaurant, Girling Repair, B&B Propane, and the family of Jet Stops, CW Tree Trimming LLC, and Iowa Technology Systems. And once again, thanks to the Washington, Iowa Public Library for the use of their wonderful podcast room. I'm your host, studio. I'm your host, John Bain. Stay friendly, Southeast Iowa.